Now, the renewed restriction of not selling foreign exchange for Bureau de Change's operators that are in Nigeria has started, and all parties are seemingly adjusting to this. Now, deposit money banks in the country have responded and assured the public of total compliance. Some have even started sending out information to their customers, inviting them to buy foreign currency from them. On the other hand, organized BDC operators have said they will source for the sought-after currency and make it available. But questions remain as to what happens with the BDCs in totality and how the economy will adjust to the changes. Will the restrictions last? Is it to the benefit of the economy in the long run? And what will happen to the Naira in the next few weeks? These are just a few questions we'll get in today as we focus on Nigeria's Bureau de Change restrictions. This is Business Edge. I'm Tolulokwe Adeleru Balogun. Now, joining me on the show today is Mukhtar Mohammed, financial analyst and the CEO of Asher Dynamic Solutions. Mukhtar, welcome once again to Business Edge. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, too. Good morning.
So let's start with this. In particular, we know that these restrictions are not really new. We've seen something similar twice in the past 5 years. But for one reason or the other, along the line, we'll find that the CBN reverses itself and brings the BDCs back into the system. So should the CBN in the first place have been selling such large amounts of dollars to the BDCs? What was the intention of having the BDCs participate in the auctions and in this system in the first place?
Tolu, I've been one of those people that have not seen any reason why the BDC were doing that, why the CBN was doing that to the BDC. I've complained about this thing because I don't see why we use our scarce natural resources to begin to form a business that its contribution to the GDP has not been proven for a very long time. I went through the numbers, and you see that just with the BDC alone, we're doing about in a year. We're looking at what CBN was saying, that was giving them about $20,000 every week, and we got to the numbers so that CBN was actually spending $472 million every year, and our debt services alone is $176 million. So we're spending more money in terms of traveling, in terms of meeting, traveling, other things, and even in our debt services. So it has not worked out well for us. But like you said in your opening remark about be able to meet up with the challenges in terms of the volatility of the exchange rate, I think this time around the CBN need to come in and try to see how they can, the gap in terms of demand and supply. And the good thing is that the BDC themselves are beginning to say, look, we'll sort our own forex elsewhere, and that will again play to the hands of the consumer. Because what we're going to see, we're going to see demand and supply playing a role in terms of the pricing of the currency, which more or less is more or less like what we see in the import-export windows. So my main challenge with the CBN is whether CBN will be able to meet those traders, those that small retail investors, small retail traders, not even investors, those that will be doing we need Bureau de Change like $10,000, $5,000. They normally buy from Bureau de Change. They have to put it into their bank account, then transfer to their dealers outside the country. Those will be the challenge, because those were the reason why those Bureau de Change were established, to be able to meet some of the short-term demands that has to do with trading. So for me, and that's another major challenge. Then they should also not go to the oil and gas sector, whereby if you go to the shipping industry, whereby restrictions are done, transactions are actually done in dollars. So, and some of these people have to sort their dollars also from Bureau de Change. How is government going to meet them? And then you tell the small trader to fill Form F. How soon will you be able to meet up his demand for that to also get his goods from Nigeria, from abroad back to them? So there's a lot of challenges when it comes to the BDC and the CBN. But for me, it's a good decision if we are able to get it right, especially in the area of supply.
Okay, so we will get into the banks a little bit later, but I just quickly want to touch on some of the criticism that the CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele had for the BDCs. He accused them of not helping maintain price stability in the market. He said that they had turned renegade and that they were greedy, that they were making money while ordinary Nigerians were in pain, and that they were being used for corruption and money laundering. Now, was there no way for the CBN to monitor their operations and reduce the illegal activities he's now criticizing them for? It was the CBN giving them upwards of $20,000 a week. There should be some responsibility, some transparency, some accountability with that. Was the CBN failing in doing its responsibility in that regard?
They were failing. The CBN governor cannot approach blame that the CBN didn't have blame in that area. They did really have blame. We're talking again in terms of trying to monitor the bureau change. You saw it really change in 2000 that were about 78, moved to about 5,000 in 2020. And also see people are still also even applying for more licenses. So the CBN did not have the manpower, the capacity to monitor this bureau change. For me, that was the main challenge that the CBN had. Well, and then the CBN was telling us also in the report that we have multiple bureau changes, that one person owns up to like 20 to 30 bureau change. And so if you have all this information, why have you not clamped down on them for a long time? So for me, the action taken by CBN is late, or is rather late than never, because we are seeing what they're saying is actually true, because we're seeing a lot of policy somersaulting when it comes to bureau change, what their license were meant for. Their license were meant to meet, like I said, short-term demands like $5,000, $1,000, $2,000 traveling allowances for people that are going, and especially for tourists that are coming into Nigeria, because some of them will not have all. So the bureau change was supposed to still like a stopgap measure for that. But I don't think they clothe themselves in glory in that area. For me, they really fail. And in terms of monetary and supervision, the CBN also fails. So both sides should take the blame for what has happened to the currency in terms of the kind of waste that we've seen and the kind of corruption and impunity we saw, impunity and greed we saw play out in the bureau change.
All right, let's talk about the criticism of this particular move by the CBN. So you've said overall you think it's a good move if the CBN can hold on to it. But the National Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, as well as the National Association of Small and Medium Enterprises and some others have been quite vocal in their disagreement. They've said that the CBN is trying to ensure absolute control of the Nigerian forex market in terms of who buys, who sells, and for what purpose. They also believe that this is bad news for the real sector. And of course, you've made reference to that in terms of the difficulty that might ensue in getting the necessary currency for those small and medium businesses and those who deal in things that require hard currency. What do you think of this criticism in terms of the CBN trying to gain absolute control of that segment?
Look, I don't understand what they meant by the CBN was trying to get absolute control from that sector. Who were actually in control? The CBN was the one still giving the bureau change forex for them to sell to the end users. And so it was still the CBN. I remember the CBN said, look, we gave them at this amount, you have to sell at this amount. So it was still the CBN that were in control. But this time, they were not regulating them, they were not supervising them. So what they are saying that we want to have, we will still give out this fair FX to grow, but then we want to be sure that we're giving it away. We can be able to supervise it, because it's like we cannot supervise it through the change. And look, the bureau change also have come out to say, look, we are not out of business. Remember that this decision also does not ban the bureau change from doing their businesses. So they will come up with creative measures also trying to get their own supply from other sources that they feel is necessary. So for me, I don't think it's something, I don't see what they're saying, because if you have a genuine need for FX and you have to go through the bank, especially as an SME, CBN even said SMEs also, but the challenge, like I said, would be in terms of transparency, in terms of accountability from the deposit money bank. That is where I have a challenge. But to say that the CBN is trying to control the demand and supply, I think it's no central bank or anybody will just sit down and see their currency plunge into the way we were going. And you also need to know that also the CBN also play the import and export window. Also, they also are the one that meets demand in that area. And that area has not been as volatile as the bureau change sector. So for me, it's a good decision. They need to put their act together. The bureau change also need to be in business. Then also say they are going to source for their own dollar. They are not out of business. Let's see how that play out, because it's going to be a price war. And at the end of the day, the end consumer tend to benefit from that.
So beyond the restriction, the CBN also announced that it was now returning capital deposits and licensing fees to promoters of BDCs who have their applications for license pending with the bank. And as he said, Godwin Emefiele said they were getting upwards of 500 applications every single month. You mentioned the number of BDCs the country had before and then how that jump was. So obviously it was a profitable business for some people in one way or the other. And there is pressure on the CBN right now to reverse. Do you think the Central Bank of Nigeria can hold out?
Well, I wish they could hold out. And I think with what we saw over the weekend, we saw the director of banking and supervision also coming to say that they are ready to hold out, to not be like what happened in 2016. I hope they'll be able to hold out, because I think at the long run, there's going to be a decision, because no country all over the world does that. Because you don't just see the Burundi change any part of the world, just stay in one part. They are all located in the airport, because that was where they are meant to be, just when, especially for tourists. So you don't see them. So in Nigeria, you see the Burundi change all over in the streets, lanking in the street, trying to. I mean, it's not good for our financial system regulatory. It has given room to a lot of, it's in terms of security challenges, in terms of sponsoring of terrorism, in terms of illicit funds coming into Nigeria. This has become a channel whereby this was. So for me, it's a good decision, but if the CBN have the political will to hold on to it, it will be for the benefit of Nigeria. For me, I think it's a good decision if they can hold on. What they are holding on also has to do with if they are able to meet demands and how fast the demands are being met. That, for me, is the main challenge.
All right. And it's interesting you talk about that, because that's the next part. So now a lot of the pressure is going to fall on banks in Nigeria, commercial banks, otherwise known as money deposit banks, to meet the demand of the average Nigerian for Forex. When we come back on Business Edge, we'll talk about the capacity of the banks to meet this demand. And we'll also look at what happens to the Naira in regards to the restriction on Bureau de Change operators in Nigeria. This is Business Edge. We'll be right back. Still with me is Mukhtar Mohammed, and we're looking at the restriction on Nigeria's Bureau de Change operators. So Mukhtar, let's get into the issue with the banks. I had a guest who spoke on this last week, and he was traveling, and he told us that he went to 3 separate banks and was unable to get Forex. One said he needed a week, another said he needed 2 weeks, and another said they didn't have. So there's the criticism of the banks and their capacity to meet the demands of Nigerians in a legal way. You've mentioned Form F now. The BDCs made it easy. You just roll up on the streets, you walk in 5-10 minutes, you are out of the BDC office, you have your Forex. This is going to likely require you to have an account. They'll probably put in some form of at least requirements, criteria for you to be able to access Forex through these banks. What can be done? We also saw that the CBN has told them to set up mobile apps, particularly for meeting the Forex demand. Do you think that the banks are able to handle the Forex situation, the demand that is coming their way?
Tulu, I don't think so, because I had the same challenge when I was about to travel in terms of getting FX. Despite even doing it 2 weeks later on, they said I'll do it 1 week. I did it 1 week. It was a big challenge for me and my family to get FX to even travel. So it's something. That's why I said their capacity to meet that also is not there. And again, there tends to be a lot of issues. They have to say you have to fill the form. There was a mistake here. They bring it back for you to fill it. I think for me that is the major challenge. But now look at it this way: the CBN said you don't need to go all through that. You just need to have an account. You just come in there to the bank. We'll see how that plays out from the beginning. From today, you send in bring your international passport. Then you with your ticket or your return ticket, and you have the right there and there compared to what we're having then. You said that they have to submit, you have to fill the form, then they have to push it to CBN for CBN to make your allocation. So this time around, we're not going to see that according to them. We are going to see whereby they will you walk in there and you get your FX before you leave, especially when you have an account with the bank. But I still have my challenge when it comes to meeting demands, especially for small retail traders, like what you have just talked about in terms of filling of form. So for me, the CBN should begin to think of creating another avenue for that sector to be able to meet demand in that sector. And also the bank also should come up with product also, because the bank also needs to come up with product to also meet those demands of those small and medium sector. For me, that is what I think they should do. Otherwise, we may have the people shouting that they want the change to come back.
Okay, so the day after the announcement of the new policy, the Naira fell to 525 Naira to the dollar. Over the weekend, it traded about 505 to the dollar and 515 to the dollar. There are some fears that the Naira may be hitting upwards of 550 in the coming weeks. What do you think Nigerians should be preparing for when it comes to the Naira-dollar exchange rate conversation?
So I don't think so. In the short term, we see those spike. And remember that the CBN just made that announcement 24 hours later, it spiked to 525. After that, once the bank MD came up and said they were going to meet demands of customers, they begin to create the retail outlet. We saw it come down to 505, 515. So today, now this week is going to be a very pivotal week for the Nigerian currency, because from today henceforth, we see the bank setting up retail outlet for customers to meet genuine demand in FX. We are going to see how that plays out. That in the short term, we see those spikes, but in the long term, if we are able to meet up with some of this policy that the CBN is saying that they will be able to meet demand, we might see the Naira stabilize. But like I said, it has to be, are we able to bridge that gap? But when you're looking at everything around us with the price of oil going above our benchmark with the time and the CBN intends gaining almost adding to the foreign reserve in the last report on our foreign reserve, then you begin to say in the short term we may see those challenges, but in the long term we may begin to say the Naira will have that challenge. I mean, that's what the CBN are trying to achieve. Maybe a uniform exchange rate between the parallel market and the import-export market. And that in turn will play a big role in bringing foreign and direct investors into Nigeria. And that again will address inflation in the long run. But in the short run, we might see a spike in inflation, especially if the bank are not able to meet demands, especially for the retail investors. When I mean retail, is small traders. Then they will have to go back to the change to begin to sort out for their own. And that, so it's all about meeting those demands that they will ask for. That's the major challenge that the CBN will have. If they are able to meet up those demands, then the currency will definitely stabilize.
And I think we'll end the conversation there. You went a bit into my next question, which was why Nigeria has had such a difficulty in making sure it has just one uniform exchange rate. We will be watching this very closely in the coming week and in the coming 2 weeks as Nigerians adjust. We'll also be, of course, checking in with you and others to see how the banks are fulfilling their compliance and their capacity. MDs are coming out to say, come to us. We have all the forex that you need. We'll see how it plays out. Mukhtar Mohammed, thank you so much for joining me on Business Edge.
My pleasure to do. You have a pleasant day.
All right. And we've seen from his experience as well as the experience of my guest from last week that there are some challenges that Nigeria's banks may have in fulfilling the forex demands of the Nigerian public. But they've come out to say it's not going to be so. In the coming weeks, we will see how they meet those demands. You're watching Business Edge. We have just a bit more for you right after this. And we're wrapping things up with a few stories we're keeping our eyes on. This is NC4 to watch. We start in the eastern part of the continent, where Kenya's inflation rate for July has risen to 6.44% compared to 6.32% in June 2021. This is on account of the rising cost of electricity, cooking gas, airtime, and transport. The consumer price index increased by 0.20% from 115.110 in June 2021 to 115.337 in July of the same year. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa reinstating the COVID-19 Social Relief of Distress grant and its extension to caregivers may be taking the country one step closer to a universal basic income guarantee. However, the SRD grant of 350 Rand per month can at best cover about 60% of a person's minimum required food intake. It has been suggested that the grant should be increased to at least 585 Rand, which is the food poverty line. Number 3 on our list, African securities exchanges that include some of the most vibrant and biggest bourses on the continent have moved a step closer to linking up their trading floors to enable cross-border transactions. This is after the African Securities Exchanges Association signed a contract to procure an order routing system. Now, 7 leading exchanges are working together in the African Exchanges Linkage Project to make this happen. And the 4 on our list, the Ghana Chamber of Mines CEO Suleimanu Kone said it is the ambition of the chamber to make the country the hub of mining services in the sub-region. He expects the chamber to leverage on the opportunities of the African Continental Free Trade Area to achieve this dream. With regionalism serving as a cornerstone for building a global economy, Ghana is looking to improve its international competitiveness in all aspects of economic activity. And that's it on this edition of Business Edge. Welcome to a fantastic week, and we hope that it will be a financially fantastic one for you as well. Make sure you join us 11 a.m. West African time for all the latest business and economic conversations coming from the continent. Follow us on social media. We are at New Central TV. Follow us and subscribe on YouTube, and of course download our mobile app on your App Store and Play Store. Until next time, I'm Tolu Lokwe Adelaru Balogun.